Bonnie's story begins on a bustling street where she was found all alone, struggling to navigate her surroundings. This tiny kitten was in desperate need of help, her eyes so damaged that she couldn't see the world around her. A kind soul came to her rescue, scooping her up and rushing her to a veterinary hospital where her long road to recovery began. At the hospital, Bonnie's condition was assessed, and the news was heartbreaking. Both of her eyes were severely inflamed and causing her immense discomfort. The vet team tried everything to save what little remained of one of her eyes, but it wasn't possible. Without intervention, Bonnie would face a lifetime of infections and pain. The difficult decision was made to remove both of her eyes, ensuring her a future free of the agony she'd endured for so long. The surgery was a success, but the recovery process was challenging. Bonnie was left confused and a little low after losing her sight, an adjustment that would take time. Yet, even in the face of such hardship, this brave little kitten showed signs of resilience. She leaned on the kindness of her caregivers, who showered her with love and patience. Tragically, Bonnie had already endured another significant loss, her brother. But life had a surprise waiting for her in the form of another kitten named Ashley. Ashley's story was equally heartbreaking. She was orphaned and cruelly dumped in a box left to fend for herself. When Bonnie and Ashley met, a special bond formed between them. Ashley, the younger of the two, found a big sister in Bonnie, and Bonnie found a reason to hope again. The two kittens became inseparable, offering each other comfort and companionship. Together they faced their challenges with courage, proving that love and support can heal even the deepest wounds. Under the careful watch of their caregivers, Bonnie's recovery progressed beautifully. Her eye sockets began to heal and she adjusted remarkably well to her new reality. Just as things seemed to settle, a wonderful opportunity arose. Bonnie and Ashley were set to fly to their forever home in the UK. Their new owner had extensive experience caring for blind cats and was prepared to provide them with the life they deserved. The journey was long, but the kittens arrived safely late one night, stepping into a new chapter filled with promise. In their new home, Bonnie and Ashley are thriving. Their bond has only grown stronger, and their new family has given them the love and stability they need to flourish. Bonnie's healing continues, and while she might require further medical attention in the future, her days of pain and struggle are behind her. Bonnie's journey reminds us of the power of resilience and the incredible impact of love and care. She may have lost her eyes, but she gained something far greater: a loving family, a loyal companion in Ashley, and a chance to live a life filled with joy. As Bonnie and Ashley explore their new home, they inspire everyone they meet with their courage and determination. Their story is a testament to the importance of rescue efforts and the life-changing difference that compassion can make. Bonnie's story is both heart-wrenching and inspiring. It's difficult to imagine the pain she endured, losing her vision and her sibling, but her resilience shines through. The decision to remove her eyes was a tough one, but it was made with her well-being in mind, ensuring she could live a life free from discomfort and infection. Her bond with Ashley is truly touching, showcasing how animals find solace in one another during difficult times. Despite her challenges, Bonnie has shown incredible strength, adapting to her new reality and finding happiness in her forever home. Her journey reminds us of the power of compassion and the profound difference rescue efforts make. Bonnie's story is a testament to the resilience of animals and their ability to thrive when given love and care. It's a beautiful reminder that, even after hardship, a bright future is possible. Now that the story of Bonnie came to an end, it's time to move on to Pimpy's story. Pimpy's story begins on a stormy evening, under the shelter of a bustling cafe. The rescuer, seeking refuge from the heavy rain, noticed a small figure curled up on one of the cafe chairs. It was a tiny kitten, no more than 2 months old, sound asleep amidst the noise and chatter. He was thin and fragile, his frail body barely able to withstand the harshness of the world outside. Moved by the sight, the rescuer gently picked him up, deciding then and there to give this little one a fighting chance. They named him Pimpy, a fitting name for a kitten with so much yet to discover about life. Pimpy's journey of recovery began immediately. A visit to the vet revealed a host of issues. He was severely malnourished and suffering from a digestive infection. Despite his challenges, Pimpy's spirit remained strong. His tiny meows and gentle purrs were proof of his determination to survive. The rescuer did everything they could to help Pimpy. They provided him with love, warmth, and nourishment, but soon noticed something wasn't right. Pimpy's digestive issues persisted, and he began to show signs of discomfort. Concerned, the rescuer rushed him back to the vet, hoping to uncover the root of the problem. After a thorough examination, the vet confirmed that Pimpy was dealing with gastrointestinal issues that required special care. He was prescribed a diet of specially formulated food to ease his digestion and support his fragile body. But despite these efforts, his condition didn't improve as expected. During another checkup, the vet discovered an alarming number of fleas infesting Pimpy's tiny frame. The parasites had been silently draining his strength, leaving him weak and anemic. It was a critical moment for the little kitten, as his weakened state made him more vulnerable to further complications. The vet acted quickly, administering a flea treatment to rid Pimpy of the infestation. It was a small but significant step in his recovery. For the first time in days, there was a glimmer of hope that Pimpy might overcome his struggles. With the fleas gone, Pimpy began to show signs of improvement. His appetite returned, and he started responding positively to the care and treatment he received. The rescuer noticed a change in him. His eyes were brighter and his once feeble meows grew stronger. Thanks to the dedication of the vet and the tireless love of his rescuer, Pimpy's condition began to stabilize. Slowly but surely his fragile body started to gain strength. He was no longer the helpless kitten found sleeping on a cafe chair during a storm. Pimpy was transforming into a spirited little fighter, ready to embrace life. Today, Pimpy is on the road to recovery, a testament to the power of compassion and care. His journey reminds us that even the smallest lives deserve a chance, and with the right support, they can overcome even the toughest challenges. As Pimpy continues to heal, we are hopeful for his future. He still has some hurdles to cross, but with the love and support he's receiving, we know he's on his way to a brighter tomorrow. The stories of Bonnie and Pimpy are heartwarming examples of resilience, compassion, and the transformative power of love. Both kittens faced unimaginable hardships early in life, but were fortunate to encounter people who cared deeply enough to change their fates. Bonnie's story is a testament to her bravery and adaptability. Losing both her eyes to a painful condition could have meant a bleak future, but the decision to remove them was an act of love that spared her from ongoing suffering. Her bond with Ashley and their journey to a forever home exemplify the hope and joy that come from giving vulnerable animals a second chance. Pimpy's story is equally inspiring. Found during a rainy night, this tiny kitten battled malnutrition, digestive infections, and anemia caused by fleas. His recovery highlights the importance of timely intervention, veterinary care, and the unwavering commitment of his rescuer. Watching him transform from a fragile kitten to a playful, thriving companion is a reminder of what kindness can achieve. These stories reflect the incredible impact of rescue efforts. They remind us that every life, no matter how small or broken, deserves a chance to thrive. Bonnie and Pimpy's journeys inspire us to act with compassion and make a difference for animals in need. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, consider giving us a thumbs up. Tell us what you think in the comment section, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel.